Hi everyone, welcome back to another video on Beyond Biz. Last few days have been really amazing for me because I've thoroughly enjoyed your likes, your comments and the views. So thanks a lot for that. It is really a big motivation for me. And in today's video, I'd like to talk about something very important in terms of the application process, and that is the recommendation letters. So I'll be sharing my 10 tips, top 10 tips to help you make your recommender give you the best recommendation possible. Having said that, let's dive straight into it. My number one tip for recommendation letters is to start early. This is absolutely crucial. Well, because a recommendation letter is something not which you write, but something which your recommender writes, and that is not in your control. So give your recommender enough time and get started with it right away. And how do you get started with it? Always remember that more or less all schools have just two types of questions. The one question will ask you about your strengths, comparing you with your peers, and the second question will be around your weakness. Give a time when you had some feedback given to you and how you reacted to that feedback. So these are the two main questions, and what you need to do is think about stories in your life where you excelled in the strengths and the time when you got some feedback and how you reacted, so you can give them some pointers. But the idea is to start early. The second tip which I have for all of you is what I call temperature check. Now this is very important. You need to really gauge whether your recommender is truly your best cheerleader or not. It's well possible that your boss may, for example, not want to give you the best recommendation, or may give you, let's say, a cold recommendation, not very warm. So it's very important for you to gauge that. And the best way for you to do that is to have a very open conversation with your boss. Ask him or her whether he or she will be willing to write you a letter of recommendation in the first place, and also tell them that this is a very competitive process, and whether they will give you, for example, the checkbox, or whether they would put you in the top 1 percentile or in the top 5 percentile. This is absolutely crucial, because if your, let's say, current boss says no, or your recommender says no, then you need to find somebody else who can write you a letter of recommendation. The third tip that I have for all of you is to pick a recommender who knows you the best. You don't have to chase fancy titles or fancy MBA degrees, but the person who is writing the recommendation should know you really well. And in most of the cases, this will be your direct supervisor. So he or she should be the first go-to person. Now, if you've recently changed jobs, it could be your last supervisor, or if you're working in a startup, it could be one of your partner, or it could be one of the customers you work very closely with, but more often than not, stick to the direct supervisor. So tip number 4 is focus on leadership. I've spoken about this even earlier in one of my videos on the resume, so if you haven't watched that video, you should totally watch it. But the idea is always focus on your leadership skills. You don't have to mention the day-to-day skills. Always look at the time when you were a leader, and for example, when you persuaded someone, when you negotiated something, when you led something. So these are the kind of examples that will typically go in your strength story, the one which I talked about in the start of this video. Tip number 5, make sure that your essays are in line with your recommender's recommendation. This is very important, because let's just say they should not contradict each other. For example, if you wrote in your essay about you being, taking a lot of initiatives, and your recommender says, this person does not take too many initiatives, then clearly there's a contradiction, right? And you don't want that happening. So whenever you're giving your recommenders hint about the stories they should be, writing about, then you can always say, do you remember the time when I took this initiative, so that the recommender knows that they should be, not putting that in the negative light. Okay, now before we go to the last 5 tips, we're already, past the half mark of the video. So if you're enjoying the tips and if you're liking the content, this is a good time if you'd like to give this video a like, or also subscribe to the channel. So with that, let's move on to the 6th tip now. The 6th tip is please do not write the recommendation yourself. I mean, the admission officers have been there for multiple years, and it will just take them 7 seconds to guess that this is not written by the recommender but by you. It's also possible because you wrote your essays yourself. hopefully, and in that you have a certain sort of voice in which you write, a certain sort of usage of grammar which you exhibit, and that may come in your recommendation, and then this is really a no-go for the business school then. So don't write the recommendation yourself. Tip number 7 is to focus on recency. Now look at, for example, the recommendation letter should be written by somebody who was your recent boss or worked with you very, very recently, because they are admitting you at this point and they want to see what have you been like in the past 6 to 12 months. So make sure you choose somebody who's worked with you recently or who's managed you recently, and also tell them about stories in the past 1 year or maximum 2 years. Recency is absolutely crucial in your recommendation letter. So the tip number 8 is give your recommenders some pointers. Don't just leave them an email, hey, can you write me a letter of recommendation, I'm applying to ABC school, and that's it. Don't do that, because well, they will be lost. So you have to guide them in terms of your best stories. You know yourself the best, so give them some pointers. And the way you could do this is take them out for a lunch or a coffee and tell them that hey, I'm applying to this business school, and this school values, for example, the traits of braveness, it values innovation. So do you remember the time when I was innovative? Do you remember the time when I led this difficult project? So give them some ideas so they know what to write about. Just don't leave them alone in this. Now most of the schools will have this question on weakness, like tell us about a time when you gave the candidates some feedback and how did they respond to that. And this is a question which you can answer very tactfully. You can ask a recommender to think about it very tactfully, and what you can do is in your development discussions, like in your one-to-ones with your reporting manager or your supervisor, ask him or her, hey, where do you think I can improve? I think, can you give me some tips, what is lagging in my current performance? And hear from them. So this is their genuine feedback, and then take like 4 to 5 to 6 months to work on that. So for example, they tell you that, I wish you could really put together, make a new hiring team, for example. The team currently is really not able to do the job. And then you take that feedback and you understand how hiring works, how talent management works, and you actually hire a great team. So this will make for a great story when your recommender writes you this, about this, and you have lived through that experience. So it really adds a lot of value. So consider doing that in your development discussions with your manager. Identify your weaknesses and work on them. The 10th and final tip for all of you is to add fun elements to your recommendation letter. You can always ask a recommender to talk about the fun side of you, a side which the admission committee does not know about, and some elements that you have not mentioned in your application. So for example, you can tell them about a sport you play or an instrument you play, or how much you love to travel. It can be anything, because it really shows that apart from the question on strength and weaknesses, there's a lot more to you. So tell your recommenders that they can also add a fun side to that letter and make it very engaging for the admissions officer to read. That's it for this video, folks. Thanks a lot for watching. Do let me know in the comments below what you think about this video, were the tips helpful? And as usual, if you're gonna use even one of these tips, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to my channel. Please let me know in the comments if there are any other topics about the admission, about the GMAT, or about anything around your career that you want me to talk about, and I will try to address that in my next video. I'm thinking of doing my next video from one of the comments which I get. So thanks for that, and I'll see you all the next time.